that they're amazed. But then suddenly there's this back and forth, and all of a sudden there's a point where they want to throw Jesus off a cliff. Not quite the image of a pleasant homecoming. Yet it isn't quite clear what causes the crowd to turn against him. In fact, the change is so stark that some scholars actually believe the story is two encounters put together. But in some ways, I think we can all empathize with this. I think many of us have had conversations in our life where the conversation suddenly turns, and what began as a simple conversation turns heated. But I'm still wondering, what causes this reaction to Jesus? I mean, throwing Jesus off a cliff seems like a pretty big step. What about a promise of freedom upsets the crowd? What could have been in those few moments that changed the conversation? Well, I think there's a couple of clues in the gospel reading. Jesus uses a proverb about a doctor, and the crowd asks him to do something similar to what he did in Capernaum. Also, he uses the example of Elijah and Elisha, who only did acts for foreigners. I sense that Jesus leaves the impression that he is going to provide healing, but healing for the foreigners, but not at his hometown at the moment. Now, I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of the people of Nazareth. Your homegrown prophet is telling you that he is leaving. He is going outside to take care of others. If you thought you had first dibs, you're wrong. Or better yet, imagine your doctor is going to take care of someone else before you. You are no longer the person the doctor is going to focus on in this moment, but you're relegated to farther down in the line. We see this all the time in our ERs. The staff make choices of who they're going to see first. But waiting for that leaves you with anxiety as you wait for the doctor to call your name. And this is very true even with regular appointments. Having to wait can be frustrating. Research has shown that waiting in line is frustrating. It's not that surprising. But the experience of someone cutting in front of you in line has been found to be upsetting. It's upsetting enough that you say something about it. According to one study, 54% of the time when someone cuts in front of you, someone will object. And if two people do it, 91% of the time someone will object. But we have to ask ourselves, why is it so upsetting when someone cuts in front of us in line? Researchers have pointed to two things: fairness and social structure. Since we were small children, we were taught to wait in line. Think back to kindergarten when they have all the kids line up. You're number 1, you're number 2, you're number 3, you're number 4, and it's all one nice line. So remember, you're building on that kindergarten experience. So if you're standing in line and someone breaks that social expectation, they've now created a taboo. They have now become the dreaded line cutter. I had a classmate at Furman who cut in line as part of her sociology research. And I remember her describing this one experience. She cut in line at a fast food place like Chick-fil-A. And a child around the age of 6 started calling her names, called her a line cutter. And she talked about how the kid went on for minutes of ridiculing her, calling her names, because she had taken his perceived place in line. There's something in our subconscious that believes that each person has a responsibility to hold on to the space in front of them. It becomes our territory to protect. The idea that the space in front of you is your responsibility to maintain and hold. If someone cuts in front of you, they have taken your territory. So it's no surprise that it's easy to empathize with the people of Nazareth, because to them, it seems like the Gentiles, the non-Jewish people, have jumped them in line. It feels like God's ministry is not coming to them in a timely fashion. It feels like they have lost because someone else has gained. This week has been filled with many major stories, but the one story that has stuck out to me by far the most is the water situation in Flint. The city of Flint, as some of you know, recently changed its water source from the Detroit River to the Flint River. Well, when you switch water resources, you have to put an additive into the water to prevent the pipes from corroding, and the city chose not to put it in. So the pipes, made up of lead, began to leach into the water supply, and many people in Flint have experienced lead poisoning, courtesy of their local water company, for the last year and a half. What I find the most disturbing in this situation is that the resident of Flint complained about the side effects from the water 3 months after the change. But only in the past month have they been listened to. They have cried out and have found themselves ignored. I'm sure that community asked, "Where is God?" A community like so many others where some can only be healed by God, but some of their pain can still be alleviated. But that release and healing isn't on the time or in the order that we'd like to see. And it doesn't meet our expectations because God's mission doesn't conform to our own expectations. But we have to remember, we were never entitled to God's grace, but God chooses to share it. It is easy to see us versus the rest of the world, see ourselves as the faithful Christians, and see others as the non-faithful. But we have to remember that Jesus is still coming, even if we're unsure where the line begins or ends. In fact, for God, there is no line. We all receive God's eternal grace and hope. But I have to be honest, it's hard to wait for that coming because we don't understand what God is doing. But God is the doctor that has a vision for a treatment for the world, a vision that we can carry into the world, a vision that we can follow, like so many other medical professionals. Recently, I saw some of my nurse friends on Facebook comment about how the doctor comes in and sees you for 3 minutes and sets out a plan about how you're going to be healed. And then what happens those other, if there's 24 hours in a day, so 23 hours and 57 minutes, is all those other medical professionals, nurses, physical therapists, follow that vision and they help provide that healing. We are like those medical professionals, and we are given the opportunity to help in the healing process by following the doctor's vision, a vision of the healing kingdom that we can sometimes see today and hope that we can fully see one day. Amen. Please join us for our gospel hymn.